Welcome to Module 2 of Search, Find, Buy. You already watched the introduction for this module, so let's get right to it. As you know, you're going to be learning how to pick fantastic products that you can private label and sell on Amazon. We call this the PIGS and HOPPS formula. PIGS stands for Product Idea Generation System. So this is like the first phase, and then once you identify some good product opportunities, then you take it to the second phase that we call HOPPS, which stands for High Odds Product Picking System. So there you go, the PIGS and HOPPS formula. This is what you're going to learn in Module 2. This is a very successful system, and I'm super excited to share it with you. I just want to start most modules. Heck, maybe we'll start all the modules with this graphic. I just want to remind you, as you get into learning a new business, initially you think success looks like the graphic on the left. It's just straight up with no challenge, no struggle. You're like instantly going to be successful and be building your yacht within like a day, right? But we know that success really looks like the graphic on the right. It's the general direction. You're going to have some twists and turns, some unexpected detours, but as long as you stick with it, you will end up in your destination of success. And you know this to be true. This is true with a marriage, right? This is true if you want to have success as a pro athlete. This is true if you want to have success as a professor and get a professorship, and in business. Nothing is a straight up curve with no failures, no bumps in the road. If you're going to play football, you can't avoid getting tackled. It's just not how life works. So just understand going into this business that you're going to mess up, and it kind of takes all the pressure off. And in fact, look at your first product release on Amazon as your Harvard Business School. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go into this video. I also just want to remind you, make sure that you're listening to our podcast every single week. It's released every Friday. You can subscribe right on iTunes, and you can listen to the archives right at bencummings.com. I do that with my co-host, Tryon Turku, who's another super sharp Amazon seller and a former student of mine, just like you are. So you're going to learn my very successful, highly profitable system for identifying profitable Amazon products that can make, on average, $10,000 a month or more. I just want to go back to one other point, our simple business plan, because you might be wondering, well, why do you keep harping on this $10,000 a month target whenever you release a private label product on Amazon? Well, here's why. Remember, my year one goal, my simple business plan, was to hit $100,000 a month as fast as possible. And so to reverse engineer that and to keep things really, really simple, very much 80-20, I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, as you'll learn. I thought, well, if I can just be a little more selective in the products that I source, that I private label, such that they have like a very, very high odds chance of averaging me $10,000 a month per product, then hey, I think within a year, if I just had 10 products that again averaged me $10,000 a month, I can hit my goal of $100,000 a month of Amazon sales. And so every part of what you're going to learn in this module, in the second module on product finding, is laser focused on that goal, a minimum of bringing in $10,000 a month. Doesn't mean every product will. This is not reality, but that's the goal. And I wanted to stack the odds so much in my favor that, at least conceptually, I thought that there was a 90% chance of that, by the time a product made it through kind of my criteria, there's a 90% chance or higher that product had a very, very good chance of bringing in $10,000 a month once I got it going. Okay. Now, this is a good visual, as you get kind of immersed in this course, Search, Find, Buy, you might start feeling overwhelmed. I mean, you might feel overwhelmed right now. I don't know. But I just want you to always keep this graphic in mind, no matter how much complexity there appears to be that we're going over, because just keep in mind what is now easy for you was once hard in some other endeavor in your life. It's the same thing with this. Everything we're covering this is your first exposure. It's new. It seems daunting. Trust me, though, if I talk to you 2 years from now, you'll be like, oh, what was I worried about? This is like easy. Well, the first time you go through it, it's very easy to feel like, oh my gosh, there's this level of complexity I can never master. Trust me, you can master it. Just trust me. I've had students from all walk of life, go through these methods and become very successful, top 1% sellers on Amazon. So keep this graphic in mind. It'll kind of center you that no matter how much complexity, how overwhelmed you feel, really this entire business always comes back to this simple model, this graphic, what I call the 3 legs of the search, find, buy stool. There's just 3 legs. Really, we can boil everything down to this. First, you have to pick your product, which is the focus of this entire module. And then the second is you have to launch your product. So, there's all kinds of modules about the launching phase because you have to learn how to write and craft a winning listing, and you have to learn some of the basics of how to ship the product in. All that stuff, is related to launch and then ranking it. But really, everything boils down to these 3 primary steps: pick, launch, and rank. Let's go over some core concepts. So I want to talk about picking a private label product. Boy, if there is an area where people fall into paralysis analysis, this is it. They get bogged down into trying to identify the world's most perfect product that can't fail. I got news for you. You really can never predict it with 100% accuracy. We do the best we can, but again, just like the world's best athlete in tennis, Roger Federer, he's the best. He's the most winningest player in the history of mankind. And do you think he wins every single tennis match? Absolutely not. So, you just want to stack the odds massively in your favor, but don't fear failure. And so if you just kind of like embrace failure, you won't scrutinize and spend way too much time actually releasing your first product. So don't fall into the trap of a paralysis analysis because there ain't no perfect product. So the prescription, and I've mentioned this a few times now already to you, is look at your first product release not as a money-making venture, because then you'll be too stressed. Just look at it as like your tuition. Hey, I'm paying my tuition. This is like your Harvard Business School, because you don't know what you don't know yet. And you can watch all these videos that I'm making and you can think, wow, this is great. But until you actually do it, until you have the experience, then you don't really understand this business. It's like learning everything you can about tennis, but until you pick up a racket and actually try to serve, you can't play the game. And so this is no different. So just take all the pressure off. Don't, if you stack up your pressure like, oh my gosh, my first product has to be like the product that will build me my mansion and save my family from financial ruin, you can almost guarantee that the universe will make sure that first product is a failure. So just take take all the pressure off. And trust me, that first product, even if you make no profit from that first product release, whatever you spend will be a tiny fraction of the money you flushed down a toilet for 1 semester of college. Trust me, this tuition, this quote-unquote tuition, will be a far higher return on your money. So I love this quote by Tony Robbins, and this applies to you and this business and your learning curve. And he says that people overestimate what they can accomplish in 3 months, but they underestimate what they can accomplish in 3 years. Boy, isn't that true? So let's talk about the horse track phenomenon. This is pretty interesting. So a bunch of social psychologists, they went down to the local horse track, and isn't that picture great? It's like, hey, you're going to carry me for a change, says the horse. So the social psychologists, they went down to the horse track and they studied gamblers. Okay, and they observed that just prior to deciding on a bet, choosing a horse to plunk down money, that the gambler was anxious, nervous, they were wavering, they were unsure, and they hooked up like, I don't know what the term of the things, like the electrodes, let's say, and they found that the elevated heart rate, heavy breathing, sweating, they were nervous, all signs of stress and duress. But what's interesting is immediately after that gambler went up to the window and plunked down their money, all of a sudden, all of these signs of stress just abated. They no longer had fast heart rate. They were no longer sweating. In fact, they felt confident psychologically. And what's interesting is that gambler immediately had a tendency now to double and triple their bet size to just reinforce the decision they just made. It's completely irrational, but that's how human beings are wired. Now, here's where I'm going with this. Don't fall a victim of the horse track, phenomenon. Amazon sellers do this all the time. They have a tendency to double down and become married about a product, or become overly emotional about like the world's perfect product that they think they discovered. And it's really dangerous when they take the spouse out to dinner. They've gone through my pigs and hops process, and they're cheersing over a glass of wine. Honey, I think we found the product that's going to solve all of our problems. Boy, oh boy, is that Amazon seller in trouble. They're now officially married to that product. They're emotional, right? And so don't get married to any product idea. You may fall in love with an idea, but I have news for you. The product will never love you back. And you know what? There are hundreds of thousands of good product opportunities. There's no scarcity. In fact, I have too many products that I want to release. Literally, I have hundreds and hundreds that I would love to release, but I just don't have enough hours in a day, okay? So it's kind of like needing a taxi cab in New York City. You raise your hand, and do you get annoyed if one taxi cab just blows right by you? No, because there's hundreds right behind them that will pick you up. And have that attitude with this product opportunity finding process, that just because one doesn't work out, don't get depressed. It's only a paper kind of exercise, on a spreadsheet. You haven't lost anything, right? This isn't real work like manual labor in a field. This is just an intellectual exercise using a process that I've come up with that gives you a very, very high probability of nailing those products that can make you $10,000 a month or more, okay? But don't get married to any one product. And if a product idea doesn't work out, makes it all the way through, and then you find out that you can't source it at a low enough price to hit your profit margin, next, you're like that person hailing the taxi cab. There's hundreds right behind them, and you just got to wait for the right pitch. Okay, what do you think the reason for inaction from my students is? It's fear. It's a fear of making a mistake. And I just say, get over it, because that fear is going to hold you back from actually learning this business. Remember, your goal isn't to build your yacht from this first experience. It's simply to get experience, right? So you will release dud products. I've done it. The best in the business has done it. We all do it. You can't avoid it. Therefore, don't let it stress you out. Embrace it. And trust me, you know what? It's kind of funny how the universe will actually move now when you're not fearful and you're doing this for the right reasons. And you might actually knock it out of the park with that first product. You never know. I think that Albert Hubbard said it best when he said, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to continually fearing that you'll make one. That's great. There's no such thing as a perfect product. So don't get mired down these various rabbit holes of making yourself or convincing yourself that, hey, if I spend 4 hours researching this, somehow it's increased my odds. That is just a psychological bias that is incorrect. It won't increase your odds, but you certainly have just wasted 3 or 4 hours. If you go through the process I'm going to teach you, this is about as good as it gets, right? And any additional time that you spend is just because you want a feeling of certainty or confidence that frankly just doesn't exist. This is not how business works. So the faster that you bring in these high odds products to market, the faster that you bring them to market, the faster you will ultimately uncover the home runs, those products that you release in your product mix that will make you $100,000 a month, $80,000 a month, whatever. And there are a lot of products like that, as you will see in this module. We have the actual sales data, and you'll see how to find out if a specific, like let's say you're in love, I don't know, with candles, and you love the ideas, the idea of candles. I'm going to show you a tool that somebody has made that will show us exactly what a product makes in terms of sales. And in fact, if there's enough sales for candles in general or for the type of candle you want to sell, if it's even worthwhile, you'll just know objectively. You don't have to be emotional or guess. You will have the data right in front of you, okay? So let's talk about another core principle called the 80-20 principle. Okay, so we're going to use the 80-20 principle, pretty much everything that we do in this course. It's how I run my Amazon business. I think it's why my students are successful, because we are doing this small handful of things exceptionally well that bring in 80% of the money. So if you think about it conversely, 80% of the stuff that people do in Amazon will have little or no impact and will just be a complete waste. We want to flip that on its head. We want to hone in like a laser beam on those 80-20 activities that will maximize your success, your income, and your productivity. One of those rules is simplicity. I find that a lot of people, when they get into business, their business naturally moves and gravitates towards complexity, more and more complexity. It's like when I go away on vacation and my garden is untended for, let's say, 2 weeks, I come back, it's like there's been a weed explosion, like nature's just gone out of control. And I just took the eye off the ball. I just took the eye off the garden for 2 weeks, and nature just explodes into complexity. It's just a mess. We need to beat back that complexity, right? We think we need to do like 1,001 things, but most of those 1,001 things have very, very little impact on what we're actually going to make on Amazon. So we instead want to dial into those 80-20 things and do so obsessively. So the second part of my plan, so the first part of my business plan, I taught you that I want each product to make $10,000 a month on average. And then to make $100,000 a month, I need how many products? Very good, 10 products. Okay, good, you're awake. So the second part of my plan was to release enough products for the 80-20 rule to kick in. And here's what I mean. We know that just 20% of the Amazon products that you will release will bring in 80% of the sales. So, like, in other words, this is the continuum here, this line. So a year from now, if you release 10 private label products, it's eerie how this works out, very, very close to this. You'll find that two or just 20%, are home run superstars. And just these 2 products out of your 10 products generate 80% of your sales. It's crazy. By the way, this is true with Apple, right? I mean, it's not their Apple Watch. That's not one of their products that generates huge sales. Their iPhone and iPad, just those 2 products are responsible for generating 80% of the sales for the entire corporation called Apple. Just those 2 products, okay? So no matter how good you are, you can't avoid the 80-20 rule, okay? So again, out of this mix of 10 products, 2 will be home run winners on average. Don't write me an email and go, but Ben, 3 of them are home run winners. You are wrong. Great. But just on average here, right? Just on average, 6 of them will be right in the middle, what we call the passive income earners. So these aren't home runs. These aren't strikeouts, but these are base hits. These are good money earners. By themselves, they're not going to make you 6 figures, but put together, they're making you great income. Okay, but they're not home runs. And then at the bottom, on the other end of this, are your strikeouts. You'll have 2 dog products, just duds that they're in retrospect, they just really weren't even worth releasing. But again, even doing the best job possible, you can't avoid this duds, right? But the good news is the system I'm going to share with you here, okay, the system I'm going to share with you does a fantastic job of dud avoidance. Let me explain this. I applied this 80-20 product mix idea with my pigs and hops to coming up with what I, in my, very biased opinion, is the absolute best way to pick products to release on Amazon for private label. If we know the 80-20 rules apply to product picking and product selection, then doesn't it make sense that we learn how to identify and only release those 20% of those products that are going to make us all the money? Yes? Yes. Well, I've geared my entire Amazon business around dud avoidance as much as possible because, look, it takes the same $1,000 or $2,000 investment to launch what could end up being a dud product as opposed to a spectacular winner. So why not just try to get all the duds out of the way in advance before I even waste my time? I don't really care about losing $2,000. What really pisses me off is the wasted time. Okay, so I came up with a system that does a very, very good job of keeping you out of trouble. The magic number for me, again, was 10 products for this 80-20 effect to kick in. Now, don't hit the panic button if you're like, oh my God, I don't have the money to release 10 products. As I said in Module 1, just put the focus on releasing 1 product, okay? And then you can stair step your releases in the future through a process of a strategic reinvestment. Again, I already covered that previously. I just don't want you to get fixated on this and not be able to move on. This is just the long-term goal. And if you can't release 10 in a year, no worries. I'll be happy if you release your one product and you learn its business, because that will teach you a skill that no one can ever take away from you. So my goal is to get, again, 10 products as quickly as possible in year one. That was my goal. Might not be your goal. You might be on a different, path here. And then I wanted to get them all ranking on page one, or at least for a good set of keywords, get some 5-star reviews, and end up with 2 to 3 that were home run winners. And then ideally, the rest of them would be passive income earners. Well, what was the result of my hypothesis? Did it work? Yes. By the end of year one, I was making $125,000 a month. So I exceeded that goal. And I just simply followed my simple business plan that you already know, and applying my pigs and hops system to make sure, or as close to being sure, that I was averaging $10,000 a month per product. So pigs and hops, that's what I'm going to teach you in this module 2. I am so stoked to teach you this. And what you're about to learn is perhaps the most extraordinarily successful methodology for picking a good private label product to release that has probably ever been taught in our industry. And this is based on real results. This is based on hundreds, literally thousands of our success stories from students just like you. Now, the problem is, I've observed that like 90% of people or more that I've met who have tried selling on Amazon previously, I have to make them unlearn any prior method, because those prior methods don't work, or they got them into trouble, okay? They don't understand how to pick products properly because they're not adhering to a system. It's more of like a kind of, fly by the seat of your pants approach. Well, good news. By the time you're done with module number 2, I'm going to fix this problem for you once and for all. All right, you guys excited? With that, let's get started. Please proceed to the next video.